service, and social impact internships. So that happens via our Edge online learning platform. We developed this online learning platform about 7 or 8 years ago. And at first, when we did so, our idea was, oh yeah, we need to develop a platform specifically for training students who are going to work with our partners. And that remains central to what Edge is all about. It's an online training platform, and we use it to train volunteers and interns who are preparing to work with our partners so that they learn more from the experience and so that they can ultimately have a bigger impact. However, we realized fairly early on that actually there's so much we could also be doing to adapt this Edge online learning platform for different audiences, for different campuses and different community engagement programs, even if they're not working with Omprakash partners. So for example, suppose at your college or university, you were thinking, you know, we have all these Bonners who every summer are doing these different service projects, but it would be really great to have like a shared curriculum and a shared platform for them to connect with each other and have mentors and do the work of digital storytelling and share their experience. We could provide a custom Edge program for those students, regardless of whether or not they're working with Omprakash partners. So hypothetically, you know, on your campus, some students, some Bonners might pursue internships with Omprakash partners. Some Bonners might pursue totally different service opportunities, but all of the Bonners would join this customized Edge online learning program that Omprakash offers. So those are the two pillars. I just want to make sure that's clear, like so that people don't feel overwhelmed by all the different stuff going on. So just to recap once more, we have this network of partners, currently about 180 partners in 40 countries. Your students can apply directly for internships with those partners. They're not buying a trip from Omprakash. Omprakash is not like a middleman or a matchmaker. We are really offering the platform for individuals and organizations to connect directly. And then secondly, we have this very robust online learning and digital storytelling platform called Edge, which we, again, adapt for different audiences to prepare them for different kinds of service and community engagement experiences. That's the big picture overview. Now I want to start to walk you through some of the different details of how all that works. But before I do so, I want to stop again to see if there are any more questions. And please, anything goes. Like, you can ask a specific question for your campus or something specific about me or the Omprakash team, or where did this work come from. Any of that is fair game.
Could you maybe go into a little bit about what the Edge online learning platform looks like, and maybe it's like, how does it actually work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. In fact, that's something I want to dive into in a good amount of detail in the screen share here in a moment. So I'll pull that up, but just by way of introduction, I'll say very clearly, Edge is not just like a course. I know that especially right now, a lot of students are pretty burned out on online learning and like death by Zoom. Edge is not just like another series of like Zoom lectures or something like that. The platform is designed to be asynchronous, so students can go through at their own pace. There's a curriculum component where there's videos, photos, essays, etc., that students engage with and discuss. But then there's also a logistics component where students keep track of relevant logistics for their programs, whether that's like filling out the paperwork, the waiver, whatever. You know, if you are traveling, it's like your passport, your visa, and so on. You can do all that via Edge. But then there's also this digital storytelling component. So the idea there is basically saying, you know, we want to give students a platform from which they can document their experiences and share those experiences with each other. And very often I hear from folks like, oh yeah, well at the end of the summer, every student like has to write a report of what they did, and they like email that in to their professor, or they submit this Word document to their Bonner supervisor, or they submit it via like some other online system, but then it just kind of dies and disappears forever. And the Omprakash model is quite different, because the Omprakash model is really about saying, hey, we want your students to be able to share their stories with each other in a way that's really like creative and multimedia rich, and that they will then be excited to share with their friends and family, and it's not just some like Word document that they sent to their professor that never saw the light of day again, but that it's like a really robust multimedia digital portfolio documenting their experience. And then you as the university or whatever can aggregate all of those different stories that your students are telling. You can aggregate all of those to one page. So those are some of the different elements of Edge, which I'll get into showing you in a moment. But I just want to emphasize, yeah, it's not just like a typical course of like, show up for the Zoom call on Thursday and listen to your professor. It's not like that at all. It's much more of this creative, dynamic space. So before I get into the screen share, any other questions come to mind? Again, anything is fair game.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned, how did the word come about, Omprakash?
The name Omprakash, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. So Omprakash is actually the name of a person whom I met in India in 2004, and who inspired this organization. And basically the story there is like, I was in high school. I was searching online, as maybe you and other peers and students are still doing today. I was searching like, volunteer abroad, intern abroad. And I was really frustrated to find that everything that turned up in a Google search was the same kind of chaperoned, expensive experience being sold by a middleman. And I knew I didn't want that. And I was just thinking, why is it so hard to connect directly with locally led organizations on the ground? If I'm searching volunteer in India, why do I only find websites of like companies in the US or Europe that are trying to sell me a trip to India? Why can't I just connect with locally led organizations in India? So I was really frustrated about that. And then I ended up getting lucky and meeting someone who was leading a school for Tibetan refugees in North India, led by Tibetan refugees. And I went and taught there for a few months. And at the end of that experience, just realized, wow, I'd love to help other people like myself connect directly with this school and with a few other schools in the area that I had visited, rather than need to like buy a package trip, which is sold by a middleman. And that was the initial idea. And then meanwhile, along the way, I met this person named Omprakash who really inspired me. So when I created this website, I just said, oh, we'll call it omprakash.org. And it started as just a handful of organizations in India. And now, there's like 180 organizations around the world. Maybe we'll take one more question and then I'll get into the screen share.
I originally had the same question as Jeffrey, so you covered my question.
Great. Okay, well, so let's get into the screen share, and you'll start to see some of the details of kind of how all of this works. So. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So You know, if there's only one thing that you kind of remember or write down from today, it should just be this, you know, main URL, omprakash.org. And from here, you can hopefully find your way through the many different things I'm about to show you. For starters, on our homepage, you can see a couple things going on. So, you know, we talk about this is Home to Edge, which is this customizable online learning platform. You can contact us to learn how we can customize it for you. And then there's some information about our newest program, which is open to anyone, called Widening Circles. So I'm going to tell you a bit more about that in a moment. You'll also see there's two other programs which are part of our Facing Pandemic series. These are completely free online courses, which I'll tell you about. And then also you can just see that right here, you can just jump right in and start searching our network. You can search organizations based on their location or based on the type of work that they do. So I invite you all to do that. You can also keep scrolling down and you'll see, for example, that we offer grants and scholarships to students. If you know of organizations that want to join our network, they can apply here to join our network. As you go further down, you can get a little preview of some of our different partners, and you'll see the diversity here. Like this is an organization in Ecuador that does music education. This is an organization in Somalia that does hunger reduction. This is an organization in Seattle that supports immigrants. This is an organization in India that does online learning resources. So really wide range of partners. You'll also see that our partners can crowdfund via our site, but that's a little less relevant, I think, in this case. And then you can also see some of the different blogs, and that just gives you like a glimpse into what's going on across our network. So, you know, we have folks writing about gender and COVID-19. We have folks writing about disability during COVID-19. We're talking about police brutality. We have tips for being a useful online volunteer. So a lot of different content that's relevant there. Anyway, that's just like a glimpse of our homepage. I want to show you our search page just to give you kind of a sense of what that looks like. So you're a student, you want to find an opportunity with our partners. A lot of other organizations out there, you would see like, you know, the model's kind of like pay us a fee and like purchase our, you know, Africa internship program or something. But you never really find out like, well, what is the actual organization that I'd be working with? And instead you're just like, you know, buying a trip from a middleman. But again, Omprakash is a very different model. So here on our search page, you can search by region. And I might say, you know, I'm interested in Africa. And I might say even more specifically, you know, I'm really interested in let's just say like environmental work or something like that. I can search for those terms. And then in the search results that come up, I'm going to see specific organizations, which are Omprakash partners, but crucially, these are not like projects that Omprakash has started. These are autonomous social impact organizations that have applied to join our network and that we have vetted very carefully. So we're just having a little lag here with the screen share. But so yeah, I could do a thematic search and then I could see, for example, okay, this is a partner, Omprakash partner in Ghana. I could choose to look at their profile and I can see they have some online positions. They're recruiting online volunteers for certain things. And they might also have in-person positions. And I can apply directly through their profile to work with that organization. So again, you know, 180 organizations around the world, you could spend a lot of time digging into our search page and digging into different organizations. But right now I'm just trying to kind of give you like a very brief preview of that. And so every partner has their own profile page like this, which will load in a second. And you can review all their information and then apply directly to work with them. So that kind of gives you some sense of the first pillar that I talked about, which is our network of partners. But then the second thing I talked about is the EDGE program. So this is our customizable online learning platform. And what you're seeing here is the EDGE dashboard. Within a given EDGE cohort, I can see there's this chat. I can see the different members of the cohort. I can see recent activity within the cohort. And then I can see the cohort directory and the classroom, which I'll show you in a moment, and a number of other bells and whistles. But again, the point is that Edge is not just kind of like, you know, tune into our weekly Zoom call, but it's this whole online learning environment and community. I want to talk a little bit about Widening Circles, which is our newest public Edge program that's open to everyone. But I'm going to come back to that. First, I just want to kind of talk about Edge in the big picture, like what is Edge and how does it work? So here's an example of a Edge cohort directory. So I can see all of the different members of a given cohort. And in this case, we have students from different universities and even some high school students. And not everyone's a student. Also, some people have graduated and are working. But every student, when they join Edge, they get their own profile page. And their profile is going to aggregate all of their blog posts. So you'll see an example of that in a moment. But basically, that profile becomes like a digital portfolio for that person. That's going to showcase their work to future employers or to graduate schools or just to their friends and family. So again, very different than like Canvas or Blackboard or some other online learning platforms you might be familiar with that are very much kind of like insular and no one can access unless they're enrolled in the same class. With Edge, you know, we have some things that are private only to members of that Edge cohort, but then everyone has this public profile and this public kind of digital portfolio. So you'll see that come in a moment. So within a given Edge cohort, as I've mentioned, we have the classroom. And let me just make sure that my screen share is keeping up. Okay. Okay, so this is the Edge classroom. Can everyone see this? Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is what the Edge classroom looks like. And within the Edge classroom, there is a certain number of units. In this case, we can see this is a 3-unit course. Can someone just confirm they can see this? Like there's a drop down that says
Yes.
units 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just having some doubts there. So within a given Edge course, there's a certain number of units. And within a given unit, there's a certain number of slides. And on a given slide, such as this one, we might have some text, we can have photos. And in this case, we're talking about, you know, we're introducing some different theoretical concepts for understanding the impacts of COVID-19 on inequality. And so we're talking about intersectionality and structural violence. And then one thing that's really cool is we can then click over here and we can see the comments that different students have left on this slide. So it's not just this like static piece of content, but it's actually this kind of ongoing conversation. And then I can come in here and make my own comment as well. Or I can click to the next slide and you'll see here, in this case, what we're doing is we're kind of exploring how this pandemic is impacting different communities across different axes of inequality. So we're talking about the impact, you know, sometimes we are narrating, but very often we're just curating third-party content. So in this case, you know, there's an article about how the virus is impacting indigenous communities. And then we're talking about how it is impacting refugees. And then we're talking about how it's impacting homeless people. And then we're talking about, you know, its impacts on gender and sort of gender inequality. And again, on the sidebar of the slide here, there's kind of this discussion going on where different participants in the classroom can be talking about this content. At the end of a given unit within EDGE, participants go into the Roundtable, which is like a discussion forum for that classroom. And this is another space where students can be discussing the content that they've seen and sharing their reflections with each other. And in this case, this is only accessible to the members of this cohort. So the Roundtable is kind of like that more intimate space for reflecting together. And then in other cases, you'll see the where students have like a public profile that they can share more broadly. But so in this case, we have a student who's reflecting on self-care during quarantine and how they've been taking care of themselves during this challenging time. And then again, there's another member of the cohort who can come in and comment on what they had to say. That was Krondasi's Unit 2 reflection. And now here I can go back and see in Unit 1, Krondasi's introducing herself. And again, other members of the cohort are now able to come in here and discuss that with Krondasi. Typically, the latter part of a given EDGE classroom will focus on storytelling. And we give students different tools to be telling their stories and telling the stories of other people as well, documenting different perspectives and different voices. And every student in a cohort then has the opportunity to create their own digital portfolio and share those stories. So you'll see here, this is a page that is aggregating the stories from within this one cohort in our Facing Pandemic series. And as I scroll down here, I can see all of the different posts that participants have made. So in this case, this is a student in Florida who's doing a virtual internship with one of our partners in Chile, and the student is reflecting on that. In this case, this is one of our partners in Argentina who's reflecting on their current work there. Here we have a student talking about, coronavirus in Manhattan. And here, I believe this student is in Michigan talking about the impact of the pandemic there. Likewise, this is another student in Michigan talking about how they've been impacted by the pandemic. Here we have one of our team members who's in South Africa talking about how the pandemic is impacting poor South Africans, and in particular in terms of right to housing and housing inequality. So you can see it's a really pretty robust and dynamic space that's showcasing a lot of different perspectives. Again, here's a student talking about perspectives of African Americans on COVID-19 and how it amplifies their disenfranchisement. This was from several weeks ago, before some of the current crises have been amplified even further. So certainly we have students talking about what's going on right now with protests and police violence as well. But so again, you can think of EDGE in the big picture. We have all these different programs and cohorts, but we're providing a space for students to be telling their stories and connecting with each other and showcasing that reflection. I want to go back now and show you, I mentioned this idea of every student has their own digital portfolio. So here's a given student's profile. This is Alex, and Alex has a bio here. And then as I scroll down, I can see here's all of Alex's different blog posts that she's made, all of her different stories. So again, like the digital storytelling gets kind of aggregated to the main group page as well as to these individual profile pages. I want to now show you a different example of one of our programs that is free and open to all of you to join. And so here, sorry about that. Okay, so as I've mentioned, our EDGE platform is host to many different programs, some of which are open to the public, for free, some of which are open to the public for, tuition base, and some of which we customize for specific universities. So right now, I'm just going to give you an example of like 3 of those different types of cohorts, and I'd love to hear from any of you about like how that might work for your campus. So first of all, we have the Facing Pandemic program. This is a new program that we created in March in immediate response to the pandemic. This is completely free and open access. So you and your students can join right now. There's 2 different programs. One is really targeting grassroots NGOs and CBOs. So feel free to share this with anyone you know who would fall into that category. And the other one, Solidarity and Storytelling Across Differences, is really targeting students, students and faculty. So omprakash.org/facing pandemic, you can find the link on our homepage. You can send your students here. Solidarity and Storytelling Across Differences, it's an open learning platform for thinkers, learners, teachers, and doers who want to examine COVID-19 through an intersectional lens and share their own perspectives and experiences. So anyone can join this course for free. This is something that Omprakash, as our mission as a nonprofit, we're really happy to offer this kind of free online learning environment. You can, if you're working with an Omprakash partner, you're doing an internship with an Omprakash partner, great, join this course. It's going to help you think more about the implications of this pandemic upon your work with that partner. On the other hand, maybe you're at Oberlin College or Spelman College or DePauw, and you're doing some kind of local internship, or your students are doing some kind of local internship that has nothing to do with Omprakash. They can still join this program for free as a way to add further depth and reflection to their experience. Okay, so that's one EDGE program I want to put on your radar. Next, we have Widening Circles. And Widening Circles is our newest EDGE program that we've developed really specifically for this moment. And it can be something that students do for a summer experience. They could do it for the fall semester. They could do it for a whole year. It combines social impact internships with our partners, a structure for local issue engagement. That could be local volunteering or some kind of local research, peer-to-peer learning within EDGE, mentorship from our mentor team, and then finally, digital portfolio and storytelling. Again, Widening Circles is open to the public. It's available to anyone. It's not just for a specific university. And the logic behind it is really that this is a program that responds to this current moment, to the COVID-19 pandemic and the related crises of health, inequality, and injustice that we are seeing playing out right now. Unlike the Facing Pandemic series, this is a tuition-based program, but you get a lot more out of it. You get the Facing Pandemic classroom is just 3 units. Widening Circles is a 10-unit classroom, so it's a more robust classroom. And there's also this personalized mentorship component. So when a student joins Widening Circles, they're matched with a member of our team who's going to mentor them through the whole platform. And they also get our support for finding an internship within our network. But so again, any of your students can join Widening Circles. They can join it right now, today, for this summer. It's a self-paced program. They could also choose to join it in the fall. It could be for someone who just graduated or for someone who's a first year or a senior. There's a really wide range of applicability. I want to highlight this testimonial of a student who says, when I chose Omprakash for my gap year, my biggest concern was that it would seem impersonal due to its virtual nature, but I felt incredibly supported and connected. You're really good at what you do. So, all of these different EDGE programs center on our ability to create community and share dialogue and reflection in an online space. But anyway, so the point is, any of your students can join Widening Circles. There's a program fee of $750, which I believe in most cases would be covered by the Bonner Scholarship. And by joining Widening Circles, again, they get our support for finding an internship that can be online or in person. They get mentorship. They get the whole classroom training, peer-to-peer learning, everything. So anyone can join right from here. But now the third example of an EDGE cohort that I want to show you is a custom cohort which we build for a specific university. So in this case, for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been working with Florida State University to support their Global Scholars Program. So I know many of your different universities have similar programs. We have a cohort of students every year. Maybe it's all Bonners, maybe not, but you have a cohort of students who do some kind of service project, whether it's local or global. And you might be thinking, yeah, how can we have a dedicated, personalized online learning space for them to help them get more out of that experience? And if that's the case, I would love to work with you to build a custom Edge program for your university. So again, this is the Florida State University Global Scholars Program. In their case, we've built a 12-unit course. It's an accredited course from FSU, so students get credit for going through this in conjunction with their Omprakash internships. And I just wanted to look at this example of a slide to give you a sense of what is Omprakash all about. Many of you might be familiar with this essay by Ivan Illich. It's kind of a classic essay in the world of community engagement and service learning. And many of you right now might already, for example, email your participants, email your peers and say, oh, I suggest you read this essay before you start your summer of service. But the beauty of doing it via Edge is that it's not just a static essay here. You can read the essay, but then over here we have 20 different comments that students have left. And so it's a very dynamic learning environment in that sense. And students can go through at their own pace on a different timeline, but can come in and add their thoughts. And I might come in today and I can see this student, Sergio, has written something several months ago, but I can come in and mention Sergio and say, I'm wondering about, and I can post an observation, and then Sergio will get an email that says, hey, Willy just mentioned you on slide 5 of unit 1 of your Global Scholars classroom. So in that way, it's not just like a series of Zoom calls or something, but it's this really dynamic online learning environment where, in this case, for example, we're quoting this classic essay from 1968, and then you can see on the next slide, if I click to the next slide here, what we've done here is we've shown what different volunteers have to say about Illich's speech 50 years later. And what we've done is we've looked in particular at our audience of volunteers who are not the typical white middle-class Americans. So we're adding a layer of complexity of saying, to what extent is Illich's critique relevant to one of our volunteers who's from Nigeria, or to someone who's a Cambodian immigrant to the United States who has a vision impairment and is volunteering through Omprakash? How is Illich's speech relevant to him? So this is just an example. And then again, I can see in the observations, what do different students have to say with regard to these larger questions about power and privilege and inequality when it comes to the complexities of volunteering and service. So again, zooming out, we have this Edge platform which can be adapted in many ways. We have the completely free, open, public Facing Pandemic program, which any of your students can join. We have the Widening Circles program, which is also open to the public, but it is fee-based, but you get a lot more support. And then we have custom programs that we build for different universities. Students in any of these programs have access to a customized Edge classroom where they can engage with content and communicate with each other. And they also each have their own storytelling platform where they're ultimately creating these posts, these stories, which then aggregate to their individual profiles as well. So that everyone ends up with a digital portfolio showcasing their work, as well as this ongoing kind of peer-to-peer conversation within the classroom. So I know that's a lot of information I just shared. I'm going to stop the share and come back. And how are we doing? What questions have come up for people as they've seen all of this?
I have a question about the internship side of the thing, or of the organization, of course. So I was curious if you had any statistics, or if you could just generally give a little bit of perhaps like an educated guess on how many students that apply for the grants receive them.
Apply for the grants? Can
Yes,
you?
for the internships.
Okay, but so wait, there's two very different things here. One is applying for grants,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is applying for internships. Are you referring to the?
Could a student receive a grant for an internship?
Yes. Okay, but yeah, I just want to clarify the distinction there. So first of all, anyone in the world can apply for internships with our partners. And I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but just to clarify, the acceptance rate is usually fairly high. We basically tell students, if you choose to join one of our fee-based programs,